Anne-Marie Chitzero, and I'm the Chief Investment Officer for FSD Africa Investments.
I'm Chinua Azubike. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of InfraCredit.
I think there are many challenges, and I'm going to talk specifically about a market that we're interested in, which is really driving more finance to solve Nigeria's climate energy transition challenges, which are going to require a blend of finance from the banks participating, introducing innovative capital markets instruments, early stage financing for some of the very entrepreneurial, innovative businesses that are in the country. So it's going to take a whole village to come together with some of the solutions to finance this transition from as I said, the early stage financing at the for small businesses, the continuous financing that small businesses need. Bank finance, we need to get the banks to provide finance because local currency is particularly important. We need more equity into this sector, so there are a number of challenges, but I think they're surmountable if we can kind of blend different pools of capital together to design innovative financing facilities and instruments.
There are market gaps, and in some instances we see some market failures that are solvable, but these are largely the difference between sort of perception of risk and real risk, which kind of restricts the flow of capital to unlock new sources of capital, to unlock financing for early stage projects that need much more cost-effective financing to get across the line. And we've experienced across our pipelines of projects that a large set of projects tend to struggle with accessing this kind of funding. It's either too expensive if it's available, or the collateral requirements are onerous for the borrowers. And we've had extensive discussions with different partners. FSDAi has been very creative in sitting alongside ourselves and trying to understand the market problem and design a financial instrument that is responsive to that challenge. The proposed innovative facility, which we have co-created, is going to help to share risk and help to mitigate the perception of risk, which ultimately would reduce the cost of capital, enhance our ability to provide local currency guarantees for projects that otherwise we may not have been able to support. So this is really helping to address market gaps where others are struggling to support, and helping unlock sources of financing that have hitherto been constrained from coming in to help drive development. And so this plays a very key role in unlocking sustainable growth. The challenge we really have is really a lack of early capital coming in to unlock greenfield projects. And this is really sort of the paradox when we talk about lack of good quality projects. We need to unlock these kind of sources of capital that can be very catalytic.
So one of the challenges that we thought about with InfraCredit is there's a sort of a need to mobilize more local financing so that you're not taking on any forex risks. So there are things that can be financed locally. And rather than come in and provide that financing ourselves or rely on somebody else, we thought, how can we make the financial system respond better? What's the blockage there? How can we get the banking sector to respond to this need? And we designed this facility because it's quite unique in the sense that we are providing a guarantee. We're providing that guarantee to enable the banks to participate. We're managing that risk because InfraCredit is going to be doing its own analysis and providing the offtake, if you will, for that credit. So it kind of brings together us as a niche financial sector investor to put some capital at risk to help mobilize other pools of capital that are local, because our money is in pounds, and to create the right incentives to ensure that the risk-taking by the banks are understood and are managed, and then partnering with InfraCredit to ensure that then translate into a capital markets instrument. So it really is quite an innovative way of using different pools of capital that have different mandates and different risk return requirements. How do we bring them together to address a particular problem, which is lack of project finance and local currency project finance? So our role was really to try to unlock that.
Thank you. I mean, we've had a track record over the past 5 years, of 5 to 6 years of operations, of having mobilized local currency financing for largely brownfield operating infrastructure projects that have currently in the size of about $350 million Naira equivalent. So InfraCredit, and we've had largely zero losses. So that track record is something we bring to bear. Of course, this risk-sharing instrument widens our appetite, our risk appetite now, because one would argue that having had zero losses may be a bit conservative in our approach, but to widen that risk appetite and enable more inclusive access to finance, that's part of what this instrument helps. Now we will play a typical role having boots on the ground, and this is very important when we think about the kind of collaborations that leverages each partner's strength. Right, so FSDAi has this catalytic capital that is willing to bear a certain level of risk that otherwise others wouldn't. We are on the ground. We've operated for over 6 years. We've built a solid track record. We understand the local market. And so the leverage of our experience and our ability to originate, conduct the relevant assessment, conduct due diligence, and select good projects. So the selection cost and adverse selection risk is largely mitigated because of this, the role we play in selecting projects. So we typically have a standard criteria, right? So we look out for projects that have a sustainable business model. It must be climate aligned, meets with the ESG requirements. They would have typical sort of requirements for infrastructure projects with contracts, the track record of the developer. But at least these are mostly first-time sort of borrowers, right? So and that really helps to enable more climate-aligned projects. Remember, just to add that infrastructure accounts for up to 79% of emissions, in carbon emissions when you take buildings, transport, and energy together, and that comes from a UNOP report recently done in 2021. Which means that this instrument is very critical in enabling more housing projects. So we've got some housing edge sort of green housing projects in the pipeline, which we would now be able to look at more intently, which we had struggled to because of certain risks that we couldn't mitigate. It will enable more distributed renewable energy projects, sort of standalone solar systems for households, enabling more households to also get access to cleaner energy and also have more reliable access to energy, and also similar distributed renewable solutions for commercial and industrial use. And so this is helping to displace diesel and help reduce carbon emissions, but more importantly, create sustainable lives for the end user. So it's really around affordability, accessibility, and ultimately, prosperity for the people. So it's really now people-centric development at heart in terms of what we're trying to achieve. And then it ticks 3 boxes: financial inclusion, financial innovation, and market deepening. And then this really aligns with our common values.
Thank you. So we are a specialist development finance organization funded by the UK government through FSDAi. And our purpose is to make finance work for Africa's sustainable future. And we are always seeking to be at the frontier of change of financial markets. There is a report that was launched recently by AFCA and the Tony Blair Institute that talked about the fact that African financial markets are weak, they lack the instruments and the infrastructure. And so our purpose is to drive the investments as well as the market building support to address that particular problem, but to drive it in a manner that enables the financial sector to respond. So we're really collaborating with financial sector players to help in defining innovative financing solutions for Africa's economic and green transition needs. And so this fits in very well because as a specialist DFI, we like to identify partners that are thinking differently about how to address those gaps in the market. And we come in with the early sort of risk-taking capital to take on the novelty risk, if you will. There's no precedent to this kind of structure, or we've never done it in this particular country. Maybe it's been done somewhere else, and we're trying to see how it could work in another country. And so we come in backing the particular partner, and in this case, InfraCredit, because it is a credible partner. They've been very creative about trying to solve these problems. And then we put some real money behind on the table to say, okay, we're willing to take this risk. We do want to participate in the upside. So this is not concessional capital. But we're really willing to take on that novelty risk in the hope, in the expectation that others will follow on as they see how it works. So it fits perfectly within our mandate and strategy.
Thank you. So, one of the unique things we're doing, and I forgot to mention earlier that that we have some technical assistance from FSDAi that is helping to support the upfront cost, and that is helping to reduce the barrier that affects first-time sort of borrowers in accessing finance, and that is helping to prepare projects that ultimately can benefit from financing. Now, in terms of and that fits nicely with your question around the kind of funding. And we're flexible in looking at small projects that have the potential to scale. So we look at the addressable market. If you take energy access, for example, we have one of the highest energy deficits in the world, and there's a significant amount of financing required, estimated over $16 billion to address, energy deficit especially when we look at off-grid distributed renewable energy solutions. And every player, trying to address this problem has the potential to scale. And so, but the challenge usually, because the constraints of capital and the newness of the model, you find that they initially start small. But the ability to now resize tools that can enable this type of SME type companies that are actually solving significant market failures and have the potential to become large operating entities with time is one of the flexibilities that this instrument is bringing to us. So we could look at projects as small as Naira equivalent of $4 million, and it could also sort of be aggregated. And one of the opportunities we hope to leverage of FSDAi's network is to get other similar funders to co-fund this facility. Is intended to scale up to $50 million. We built a very robust pipeline of projects. Over $200 million Naira equivalent of projects are being selectively assessed at the moment. We hope to go to credit committees shortly with the first set of deals on the back of this. So we hope to see how this actually works in convincing my credit committee that would have probably rejected the project to say, we're happy to do this because we've got a risk-sharing partner and instrument. So we're excited about this because it's helping build capacity, local capacity with my team to observe. Because once you do these deals, the perception hopefully is addressed, because the real risk is when you actually observe the actual behavior of the project and you learn through that. And the next time we may be able to leverage the instrument even further to support more projects. So we have flexibility in size, and we also do have, and that's a very important point, that FSDAi is quite flexible in their solutions. It's very important, and that helps us to address problems, in a modular way as much as possible.
We'd like to. I mean, we'd like to see this grow as a facility, just to really enable more local financing for Africa's climate and infrastructure needs. First we'd like to see others join us in this facility with InfraCredit, and based on that success, we're really, open to partnering with others to do something similar. But let's demonstrate how the model can work and how it unlocks the capital that we need to finance Africa's energy, green economic development challenges.
I mean, we anticipate that in terms of firstly the development impact that this would have in terms of jobs during construction, because now we're looking at financing happening during construction, creating jobs during that, but also mobilizing venture capital, right? Because one of the challenges that venture capital does have in the capital stack is that it's struggling to find debt, especially debt in local currency. So that mobilization effect we will measure how much private capital is mobilized, especially venture capital that otherwise would not flow because there isn't sufficient local currency debt in the capital stack to get the project across the line. Like I did say, when we sort of measure the potential, the market, the addressable market, and I just took three asset classes: housing, as I talked about, buildings, I talked about energy, and I talked about transportation, so e-mobility. Across these segments is trillions of naira of funding needed ultimately to address this gap in the country. And you can't guarantee everything, but you can create capacity and build market knowledge such that your guarantees can move from full to partial to less of that, because the assets begin to build their track record. So what is the opportunity for scale? We think this could easily be $1 billion sort of naira equivalent of capital that can be unlocked over time, right? But it's incremental, right? So we have to build capacity to scale, and that is why this relationship is quite unique. It's a combination of tools, from technical assistance to risk sharing, and that really helps to sustainably build capacity for ultimate scaling. So we're very excited about the prospects. Like I said, we do have a pipeline already that is up to $200 million naira equivalent. We expect to see that increase because now the team is motivated to look for more deals because they've got an instrument that can actually support such projects.
This is not one of the questions, but I just realized as I'm just there, why is now the right time for this type of facility? And what were some of the macro factors, the social and demographic factors that made you say, yes, we've got to do this at this time?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah. Infrastructure, when we talk about let's just speak broadly, infrastructure, the deficit, when we talk about deficit for financing, is largely in early stage projects, right? It's not in brownfields, and when we talk about capital required. And we need to solve the problem in an integrated way. And I think, the timing and, the challenge infrastructure has is not any different from the challenge climate infrastructure will have, right? It's the same problem, and we need to address that in a way that can accelerate growth. So the timing is we need bold solutions, right? We've had so many conversations around unlocking finance, unlocking domestic resources, but it's not as easy as it sounds. We need to build capacity with technical assistance. We need to risk share, and innovation, is key, and finding partners that are flexible enough to actually unlock this type of money. That is, I think, an example for what the development agency should do. In the panel session, I think one thing we spoke strongly about earlier on was the need to mobilize more development aid to act as catalytic capital. So these are worked examples of what can be replicated to scale. So the timing is essential because we need to achieve net zero by 2050, right? And we need to achieve universal energy access in Nigeria by 2030. The spate of financing that is needed requires more blended finance to take root, and this is a good example of blended finance at work. And so the timing is needed because we are running out of time. So it's urgent, and we need bold solutions that can replicate and scale And actually, behind all of this is development, right? It's underpinning this is about prosperity, it's about growth, it's about creating jobs. Ultimately, it's about improving access and affordability. And we will see this in terms of the reduction of cost of capital. So that's why this is so critical for Africa at this point in time. And I think for other markets that require similar solutions.
Great. Just a few comments to add to that. Really the imperative to scale up private finance for climate finance is urgent for Africa, otherwise we're just not going to meet our climate needs, but also there's just a tremendous opportunity to leapfrog into green industrial growth, and so we've got to really have all hands on deck. Secondly, the partners are there. There are people who are taking bold steps, African institutions that are really wanting to take those bold moves, and so partnership opportunities are available, and we need to maximize that. And then thirdly is we need local currency finance solutions. We can't be dependent always on foreign direct investments. Our currencies are suffering at the moment, and so we do need to have local currency solutions. There is capital in our markets, and we just need to make it work for our sustainable future.
Thank you.